Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, John Kearney. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting Life Unscripted. I'm so grateful to have you here today. You're the founder and CEO of one of the most advanced truck driving training simulation companies in the world, not just in the United States. And very important to get those truck drivers out there safe and sound driving those huge trucks. I don't know if people know, my friend had a license many years back. It's not easy to drive those big trucks.
No, it's a little more difficult than people think, and they're very advanced today. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things that are very different than in the old days, let's call it.
Yeah. What exactly, how did you get into it? You've been doing this for more than 30 years at this company.
Yeah, we started it more than 30 years ago, and we started it as a training school for truck drivers. Mm-hmm. And then we became interested in simulation because we knew it was a better method of training. So we started doing simulation in our training operation, which was all over the U.S. We had schools all over the U.S. Mm-hmm. And we actually merged the original training company in with Werner, which is a major trucking company in the United States. Mm-hmm. And we kept out the simulation and continued to develop it until what it is today.
That's amazing to me because, I studied flying many years back. My husband's an actual pilot. And simulation is so important even in flying because, as you can imagine, getting out there and flying in planes is be quite costly. So to be able to have that option of simulations, how has it changed from the beginnings of before simulations? How did they actually train drivers prior?
Yeah, they would go to a classroom and have a classroom instructor and try and keep the students awake. And eventually the computer-based training came, which is an improvement. And they can learn a lot. If you can imagine taking book learning, moving it to a CBT, mm-hmm. and then moving it to simulation, which is vastly different.
Yeah, it is. And what I've noticed is simulation. I've seen your simulations, they're like a screen that goes all the way around. You're totally immersed in the environment, and it makes you feel like you're right there on the road.
That's right. And they have become so developed. Years ago when we started, they broke down all the time, and they actually had all kinds of moving parts in them. Mm-hmm. And of course, today we have very sophisticated motion. And the training is much, much more sophisticated, and they don't break down. So that's a huge difference.
No, definitely. Now, when you say the motion thing, is it a motion simulator, or do they feel 3 dimensions or while they're training?
Yes. We have the patent on something called motion. And if motion is not very, very precise to what would actually happen in the real vehicle, then motion doesn't really help. It trains incorrectly. So yes, motion is part of it. The senses are part of it. We're training so that a person doesn't get sick, because if you go and you feel that something is occurring a certain way in your vision, mm-hmm. and what's occurring in your ear, what's occurring in terms of how you move, mm-hmm. now we're going to lose you and you're going to get sick. Yeah. So we've got to make sure that the motion is accurate, and we have a different type of motion than other companies do have, and all of them have the ability to have motion.
Yeah, it's amazing. That is such an integral part and a very important part that I don't think most people would even think of. But I've been with my husband in a situation where an IMC, which means meteorological condition, you can't see out the window, in other words. And yeah, you look outside the window, and if you can't see and you bend down real quickly to pick up something, you get super dizzy because your mind's like, hey, what's going on here? So yeah, I can't imagine a driver getting behind a big 18-wheeler here and getting bad deal. So yeah, I'm so glad. Now, what if someone's listening in and they're curious? Hey, I've always wanted to try being a truck driver. What do they have to know to get involved in training and becoming a truck driver?
Well, in order to become a driver for the big trucks, Class 8 vehicles, you have to get a permit so that you are allowed to take the training. And then the training is, there's a change in the law in February of next year. So it's becoming more sophisticated in terms of the training. But what you have to do is you have to go to school. And whether you go to school with a trucking company school, or whether you go to one of the public schools or a for-profit school, they all have different ways of operating. So the person ought to investigate those options and make the right decision. Mm-hmm. I can tell you go ahead.
I was going to say, can they train with your organization, or it's just a simulation? They can't really train with you guys, or can they?
No, they can't. Mm-hmm. What we do is provide the training that's on the simulator so that the individual can take the training in school on our simulator with training that we provide.
That's awesome. Yeah. Now, did your training offer anything that they could take home, like upload simulation, virtual training that they could do at home, or not really?
We do have an app. We have an app because there's part of the training is called pre-trip, and pre-trip is extremely important. If you don't pass pre-trip, you're not going to be able to get a license. So you can go online to the pre-trip app and take it online on your phone or whatever. So we do have those kinds of training assistance types of things. But there are functions on a simulator that you cannot learn otherwise.
Yeah.
And those are extremely important. There are also functions that you can learn. If we think about can I learn on a book without any feeling of driving versus sitting in something that is going to give me the experience of driving virtually? That difference is so vast that many of the functions of learning to drive are better learned on a simulator.
Yeah. Yeah. I could totally see that. Plus safer. If you had to get behind a big 18-wheeler and try to train someone that way, I could imagine it would be very different or difficult and dangerous.
Yeah, you can kill yourself and all the people around you and wreck the truck. And sometimes that does happen with students.
Wow.
But the idea is that you don't have the cost of having to operate a truck in order to train. So you save all those dollars, no fuel, no all the other things, insurance, gas, and so on. Yeah. And you also have a much better experience because you can have a blowout, you can go over ice, you can do all the things. If somebody runs out in the road in front of a real truck, the chances are you're going to have an accident unless you're trained how to handle it, unless your brain says, in this situation, if I try to avoid it, I'm going to flip this vehicle and kill some people. You've got to develop that judgment from doing it.
Yeah. And I'm guessing you have staff and trainers on board that can also run through simulations of accidents or problems, work through mistakes ahead of time in a simulation background.
Simulation does allow you to crash, so you get that experience, and
you get to live and talk
because
about
it. Because it's really so real to them. It's pretty upsetting to somebody when that occurs.
Well, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and we had the same thing in flying, and it's a great tool to have to be able to practice on the ground all the possible emergencies that can happen, anything to look out for, so that you're ahead of the game when you actually are there in person and can deal with it. And as you said, your muscle memory will take over because you've already practiced it in a simulator. You'll do the proper actions necessary to get out of an accident. Yeah.
A good example for people to see is, like when you buy a new car, you tend to start reaching for where your key was in your last car, because you have muscle memory. So now you've got to relearn where to punch that button.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, there might be a few folks out there who are interested in learning more, and actually maybe someone in their family or themselves are interested in joining that arena, how would they find out more about Advanced Training Systems and what you have to offer? How would they do that?
Well, they can come to us and ask us where the simulators are in the country. They're all over the country. But the best thing for people to do really is to research schools, just truck driver training schools, and ask if they have simulation and whose simulation it is, because there are some great ones and there's some good ones. So it's a good idea to know what is the training program. What am I going to be taught? Am I going to be driving in a truck for 10 hours or 5 hours? The way you get a license today is different because the school runs you through your training program, not required hours, but able to perform, so that they issue you a permit once you're able to perform the functions. And then you can go get your license.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should do that for actual drivers.
Yeah, they should. Oh my gosh.
There'd be probably a lot less drivers out there, but I think we'd be really well equipped on how to drive once we got into a car. But maybe in the future, maybe you'll look into doing that at your company for actual non-truckers, but drivers and to enhance their driving skills. Is that something possible?
Yeah, we actually even today have training programs for other types of jobs, police, military. There are many, many options. The people who are called hustlers, young people can take that because they don't have to pass across state lines. Hustlers move the trailers in the big, huge warehouses of companies like Amazon and all the major warehousing companies. So there's a lot of options and a lot of different types of training.
Oh, that's fabulous. And you're found at atstrainingsystems.com, correct?
That's it.
All righty. Well, I have to thank you again for coming here, John, to share your great wisdom today. This has been truly fascinating, and I'm hoping to keep those truckers safe out there and drivers. Thank you so much, John.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Take care.
It's a pleasure.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.